We're talking over the break about where we wanted to go in this. George used the metaphor of guides to this unlimited world, and we were talking about which cool bits we wanted to show you next. And so Eirik and I are going to show you one of our favorite bits, and then Aaron and Mar are going to show you some of their favorite bits, and then we're all going to get up here after the break and we're going to show you more. But what we were talking about. So, you know how the world used to be flat, and then it wasn't? I used to be depressed and shy. I mean, pretty recently, like 2007, I was what I called a high-functioning depressive.
Yeah.
Like, it didn't actually bog me down that much. I was able to go out in the world and be successful and do stuff and have a nice family life. I just was 2 weeks away from suicidal depression at any moment. But I didn't think of that as a big deal. It was like that's what I was used to, right? So my life was about how far, given that have a tendency towards suicidal depression, how far can I go? Now, what happened when I started to see something about thought, that we make shit up and then we live as if it's true, that changed. And kind of like the egg metaphor that we've been using, the disappearing egg, right? It didn't change because suddenly I learned new skills for happiness. It changed because suddenly the idea that I was depressed didn't seem so real anymore. I still felt down sometimes, but it just felt like being down sometimes. And the shy thing changed even more dramatically on a dime, where I was, I'd been shy my whole life, right? I'd been shy for as long as I could remember. So part of being shy was I didn't like going to parties because I'd have to talk to people or something. And that's bad. And every year, my wife and I, we live in LA, we'd get invited to these Grammy parties. And they were kind of, cool with cool people, but I'm shy. So I sometimes drag myself, sometimes not. And then one day it was we were invited to the party, and I had a thought I'd never had before. And the thought was, what if I'm not really shy?
Yeah.
And I genuinely, in my entire life, had never had that thought. Like, that had never occurred to me. And I thought, well, I don't know. Let's find out. And I went to the party, and it was the only time in the history of our marriage my wife ever had to get me to leave. And so we're going to talk a bit about that.
Yeah, and one of the things that struck me, we were talking about with someone in London a couple of weeks ago, and they were talking about personality tests, and you're either green or red or yellow, or you're all these, there's amazing stuff out there on different ways to personality, and I just thought that I know, before the principles, that you would definitely have an easy way of tracking me in my personality, and the way I would answer it would be very much towards a certain direction. And then after the principle, I realized most of my answers are maybe, or sometimes, or number 5 between 1 and 10, because I can't really make up. Are you an introvert, for example? I'm sometimes 5, and sometimes I'm totally not. I'm not right now, but I could be at a crowd, and then I'm suddenly I'm an introvert. I just want to stand in the corner. So it occurred to me how random everything was, and how everything is made up. Because one of the things we want to take kind of the next step in this is that I thought I was me and having thinking, and what we're talking about is that what I think is me is also thought. So you go from I have certain type of thinking to everything is made up moment to moment. Everything, the fabric of everything that I think I am is thought. And that's totally different conversation than something that's steady, and then I have thinking that I could, change or be more or less comfortable with. And then suddenly, you're introvert, you're extrovert, you have a full width of who you can be. You're not one thing, in a way.
Yeah, it's like an iceberg talking about water, right? Looking at the water all around it and going, oh gosh, that's interesting stuff. I seem to be floating in a pool of water, completely unaware that it's made of water, right? That's us. We think we're us in a world of thought, but we're thought too. it's one of the kind of properties of mind is that, we have an experience, we attribute it to something, the experience has changed, but the attribution's still there. So like, has anyone ever forgotten to be angry? Yeah? It's like, I know I'm mad at you, give me a minute. Oh yeah! And I'm remembering back. I was saying to Eirik, one of the things I say to clients all the time is like, wouldn't it be a shame to have a wonderful life and not notice?
Yeah.
Right? But that's what's going on. We get so caught up in the fantasy, we miss what's right in front of us.
Was it the boss of Microsoft or something, or the team, they had an expression, they asked how were they able to do what they did, and they basically said, we didn't know it couldn't be done, so we went ahead and did it. And that's how impossible things get created, is that it's not that necessarily they see it's not possible and surpass it, they literally don't see the boundaries. And that's what happens. So you don't have to overcome it, because they don't see the same world as us. There's something that opens up and you start seeing stuff that is not available when there's boundaries that you have to surpass.
My new book is called Creating the Impossible, and it's based on a program we run each year called Creating the Impossible.
$15.
$15.
Yeah.
It
It's
will
not out
be.
yet.
Yeah. No, right
now.
Now, I tell you what, I'd give you like $100,000 because I haven't written it yet. But one of the things that happens inevitably is partway through, we usually do it like a 90-day program, and around a month in, people start going, oh, I need to change my goal. And it's like, why? Well, because it looks possible now.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, that was the point. Right? Is we just get it in our heads that we can't do something. And then we literally never check because we know we can't do it. Right? We think we know it's not going to work. So that creative part of our mind never gets unleashed on it because we've just dismissed it out of hand. I was talking to a client who had an entrepreneur, and she kept saying, yeah, I've got this idea, but my marketing head keeps telling me it's not going to work. My marketing, my heart says do it, but my marketing head says you can't. And I said to her, that's not your marketing head. That's your idiot fortune teller head. Right? Your marketing head just gives you marketing ideas. It doesn't care whether you think you can do it or not. Right? And that's part of how we get to start experiencing a more unlimited life. Is we just get less interested in what we think. Okay, so like beginner's luck, right? That experience of beginner's luck, right? Well, beginner's luck, we do something, we have no clue what we're doing, we just walk in and we just do it and it works great, and we think, this is great. If I can do this well without thinking about it, imagine how good I'm going to be at it when I start thinking about it.
Yeah.
And then it falls to shit, right? And that's the same thing. It's just recognizing, hey, we're us human beings. We're at our absolute best when we really don't care what's going on in our heads. And we really make a meal out of things when we start getting serious about them. Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that's interesting is that once you start to see that it happens, that you catch thought in a moment one place, and what we're saying is, that's not a fluke, that's a principle. Then you start to realize, oh, maybe it's the same thing over here, and then suddenly realize it's everywhere. That's how everything works. Everything is made up. And that's the power of principles, is that they work all the time on everything. So if you see a limitation, it must be made up. That's the nature of it. So that is tremendous hope for the world and for you personally, because you know that if I see a limitation, it must be made up. Like that's what the principle says, is if you think it's made up. And I think that's just beautiful.
Because it means that everything's up for grabs.
Yeah.
My first book was called You Can Have What You Want. But it was actually not a great title for it because people read it as, you can have anything you want, kind of a thing. But actually what it was is I'd noticed with people that when they thought they couldn't have something, they really wanted it. But when they realized they could have it, it was possible, then often they didn't. And so really it was just pointing to, it's possible. The question is, do you want it? The question is, do you want to make your life about creating it? Not, can you? Right? It's really easy. If you can't, you won't. So you're off the hook for that. Right? If you actually can't, you won't. But there's no way that you could possibly know that going in. And because we think we're good at predicting the future, we stop ourselves from putting this incredible intelligence of the universe, this incredible creative potential, to work. And the second we get out of the way and make space for it to come through, things happen. Often not what we expect. You know, I often say it's 100% reliable and 98% unpredictable. But that's gorgeous.
Yeah, you're 100% right 60% of the time. I only saw that movie apparently.
Should we pass the baton?
Yeah.
Right. Baton passed. Yeah, so we shall now keep you in the capable hands of Mara Gleason and Dr. Aaron Turner.
Oh, maybe I need this one.